of today. Thank you to everyone who has joined us here today, whether in County Hall or via the webcast. I'm hoping to see most of my group watching this on the webcast. As always, we have some important decisions to take on behalf of Surrey residents, including a report on the Council's finances, the finance function by SIFA, who were invited in because we actively wanted to be independently challenged. I believe that's an important concept of what we do here. A proposed change to the support arrangement for our community partner libraries, because volunteers have grasped the opportunity with both hands to tailor their library to the local community needs. And a paper ballot proposal to make use of a site of a former care home to provide new facilities for people with dementia that reflects the changing needs of older people in our society. But before we begin, there are a number of procedural items which we have to deal with. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman. We have apologies from Alison Griffiths and Geoffrey Harris.
Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting of the 17th of July, which have been previously circulated to members. Are we happy with those minutes? Okay, thank you. Does any member have a declaration of interest that you would like to state now? Okay, thank you. We've got a number of procedure matters. Item 4A, which is members' questions. The first question we've had in is from Hazel Watson, who I notice is not with us today. An answer has been laid out in the paper by Mike Goodman. So we'll now proceed to question 2, which is from Chris Botton, who I see here today. Do come and join us, Chris. And is there anything else you'd like to say to Mary Lewis's answer, please?
Leader, I'm very grateful to the Cabinet member for her very helpful answer. And just to say that in line with advice that you personally gave me some years ago, I have prepared Caterham Hill Parish Council for the possibility of assuming responsibility for the library in Caterham on the Hill. What I'm keen to do is to register with the Cabinet member and yourself that there is that residual keenness to take matters forward and work in partnership with you to do so.
Thank you very much. That's a very helpful intervention, because I think what we've learned from the community partnered libraries is that when we do work in partnership with people, in this case volunteers in the community or parish councils, we can really make a big difference for our residents. And what we know about Vision 2030 and all the things that people want from the county council, from the responses we've seen so far, is they understand that things can't be done exactly as they were before, and that partnerships of all kinds, including with parish councils, will be really important in the future. So thank you for coming with that positive message.
Can I just say thank you to Caterham Hill Parish Council for the work you're doing on behalf of the people in that area. Thank you. Our third question comes from Jonathan Essex, and I think we'd be very disappointed if you weren't here, Jonathan, so please come forward and ask any supplementaries. The response is being tabled by Mel Few. If you've any other...
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry, I'm pleased not to disappoint you. In terms of the question, thank you for the reply that you've given. What I was hoping was to understand from an idea of the social and the financial costs and benefits, the rationale for the change. So I'd be grateful if you could confer whether Anchor had expressed an interest in extending their contract. And in light of this, if it was a proactive decision to take it back in-house and we made the decision because of our choice, then presumably that would be on the basis of strong social and or financial benefits, and to indicate what those might be. And if it was the other one, you noted that in your reply that there are incremental costs associated with the transfer, and it's clear in your answer that there are no social negative impacts from the transfer, but could you outline whether there might be a longer term cost implication if that is the case?
The answer is fairly easy. As I referred to in my reply to you, is that this was a PFI contract negotiated some time ago, and in terms of the PFI contract of the 17 homes, 8 were to revert to the council in March 2019 with a total of 413 beds. And Anchor basically are slowly exiting the business of provision of residential care for elderly, and they're moving more into supported living and extra care facilities. So therefore these facilities that are coming across to us are surplus to their needs. They don't need them, and we desperately need some beds in the county because we're struggling at the moment to provide suitable accommodation at a reasonable price going forward. They came off a block contract which was negotiated at the same time as the PFI. The second tranche of the homes were completely rebuilt on the time of the PFI, hence the extended dates going forward. I cannot give you any incremental cost at this stage because clearly at the moment we've only started negotiating with Anchor, and the public notice has gone out to the people that are concerned. Between now and January, discussions will be taking place with the staff. Hopefully they'll all come across to us going forward. So that's all I can add at the moment.
Thank you very much.
We now move to item 5, report from the select committees. There are no reports, so we can go straight to item 6, which is decisions made by the leader, deputy leader, cabinet members, or the investment board decision taken since the last cabinet meeting. So the decisions are the first decision is the one that I made with a great deal of sadness, was to close Ripley Church of England Primary School, which I did after a fairly lengthy consultation. Some excellent work that was done by Julie Isles on behalf of her residents in the area, and I thought she was a credit to the council, the way she conducted herself throughout that process. I'd like to thank Mary also for the work you did. It was really helpful, and I believe it was a decision we had no option to make, but at the end, I'm aware that all the few children left have now been placed with other schools. Is that correct, Mary? Yeah, thank you. There was a cabinet member for all-age learning approved by Mary. Do you want to say anything, Mary, or are we happy to move on these? There's quite a lot of decisions you have to make there. Are we happy with all those?
I can briefly say, Leader, that the decisions that relate to specialist centres at various schools are expansions which are going to go some way towards helping us with our increasing need for SEND places.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and then the final decision was made by the cabinet member for Environment and Transport, Michael. Are you happy with that, or do you need to say any more?
I don't think I need to say any more. Thank you.
Item 7 is our monthly budget monitoring report. Today I can present the Budget and Finance Monitoring Report to the end of July 2018. Many of you will have noticed a change in the presentation of the papers and the annexes, which explains clearly the magnitude of the task this county council faces. In reality, every county council in the country is faced with the same harsh reality, and a shortfall of funding that covers over 1 billion of pressures nationally on the county councils, which has been reported far and wide in both national and international, including an article in the New York Times last week. I cannot emphasize enough that unless we all, and when I say all, I mean members, that's all 81 of us, officers, partners, create the environment where we transform what we do at pace, the County Council will not be in a position to do what I think we're all here for, to serve the residents, to serve our residents as best we can within a fixed budget envelope. It's a reality we're faced with. We know we are seeing a 6.5% increase in the need in essential services, but the income that the County Council receives from council tax and other sources of funding can only raise 2.4% against the 6.5 cost. As the main part of our budget is seeing no increases from government grants, it clearly demonstrates the need for the County Council to implement major transformation strategy. It is this transformation strategy, that will help us to provide services within our financial means so we can meet our duties to our local residents. Over the summer period, the Cabinet and CLT have been working hard to identify whether we could find operational savings in 2018 and 19 in order to ease the burden on 2019 and 20 and future years. Whilst this report clearly lays out that the 66 million savings that we as members all agreed in February this year are on track to be delivered, it's critical that we need to reduce operational costs the Council faces over the next 3 years' budgets. I'm delighted to say that we've made a start in this, and my thanks go to the Cabinet and CLT for agreeing the areas to reduce forecast spend this year by up to a further 40 million, which is laid out in Annex 4. Now we must consider the report in front of us and seek endorsement of the recommendations on page 10 of the report. I'll go around the room and ask those relevant Cabinet members to go over their main items, and there are a number of already questions which I've posed, and I look forward to the answers. So may I start with Claire Curran, please. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Leader. Shall I speak to the current position and also the how we envisage capturing some of the financial discipline throughout the rest of the year? Well, members will have heard me speak over many months of the difficulty in controlling spend in children's services. Nationally, the press talks about a crisis in social care. Mainly this has focused on the crisis in adult social care, but the crisis is no less acute in the social care we provide for children. That's safeguarding children and young people and keeping them protected from harm and neglect, as well as the services that we give to children with disabilities who need to come into statutory services. So over the course of the last 2 years, the Children's Service has traditionally, well, it shouldn't be a tradition, should it? It has been common for me to report an overspend against our budget. This year to date, we do have a small overspend, but it is not running at the levels that it has been in previous year. We're looking at an overspend during the course of the year as things currently stand of just over £500,000. Around £250,000 of this overspend is directly attributable to the extra funding that this council has put in to address the interim plan for our CAMS contract. I know that members and many residents are very conscious that our CAMS service has not been performing at the levels we would like it to, and additional funding has been put in to ensure that children and young people who need early support through mental health or to protect their emotional well-being, it's important that they've been able to access that. So that has accounted for some of our projected overspend. We also obviously have, as you know, Leader, you were talking about entering into a period of transformation and redesigning services. Well, members and residents will be very much aware that we had an adverse Ofsted judgment earlier this year, and it's imperative that we drive through a fundamental improvement plan to absolutely change the way we deliver children's services. To do that, we need to have staff who can work with children and work to keep them safe and to keep our service working at a safe level. When we don't have permanent staff in place, we absolutely must have locum or agency workers to fill vacancies. And we have a slight overspend on our staffing budget in order to make sure that important vacancies are filled and that we do have social workers who are able to work with vulnerable children. You'll all be familiar with me having spoken about our overspend in our placement budget. When children enter into the care of the county council, they go either into foster care or they live in residential homes. The need for finding placements for homes for those children has far outstripped our projections in previous years, and we have needed to find very much more money to fill this part of the budget than we had previously envisaged. This year we have a small overspend, but as part of the way that we're working now in our transformation plans, we have really tried much harder and to manage the process by which we place children, by planning much more on the level of individual children where they should go, by really analysing their needs and looking for individual placements for each child. Separately and at the same time, we have entered into framework agreements with many other local authorities for both residential care and for the use of independent fostering associations. And we have also been able to place children much more successfully with our own very valued foster carers here in the county, and to use our own residential homes here in Surrey. And so by carefully managing that, we are able to reduce the overspend and look forward during the course of the year to using that monies better. And the final part of the pressure on the Children's Services budget is the money that it costs us to look after unaccompanied asylum-seeking children who who arrive in Surrey unannounced and have to be accommodated and supported as other foster children do. You will remember that we do get grant back from the government to partly offset the cost of doing this, but we have far more children and they cost far more than the amount of money that we get from government, and the subsidy that this council puts into supporting and caring for children who arrive here as unaccompanied asylum seekers is over £4 million a year, and that's a huge pressure just on this budget. As we look forward throughout the rest of this year, I'm confident that the fundamental changes and the improvements that we're making in children's services will mean that we are able to contain some of the cost pressures that we're looking at the moment. So particularly around our placements budget, which is coming far better into control as we place children into more suitable foster placements or homes, and many of those close to their home rather than being far away. We are also expecting that our staffing budget will be less than it is now. We should have, as we move forward throughout our period of improvement, far less reliance on locum social workers. Of course, we'll always need social workers here in Surrey, but we are looking to ensure that we have the right capacity within our service, that the right people are working in the right part of our services, and that will mean that social workers have lower caseloads, lower workloads, and our reliance on locums and agency workers should reduce. I think I'll leave it there, Leader, and if there's anything else you'd like me to comment on, I can do.
Send and education, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been speaking at these meetings for the past year about my grave concerns regarding the growing overspend in SEND, particularly the high needs block budget. And unfortunately, this month is no exception to that. And I want to really make clear how concerned I am about it, because the pressures in some ways are similar to those that Claire's been talking about, but a lot of the cost containment exercise that we're doing and our long-term transformation project, I would say, are much less secure than what Claire's been talking about, and I want to make you all aware of that. These are really difficult, huge practice and cultural changes, and we are reliant on working really closely with our partners, particularly schools, in order to deal with the overspend. So our forecast net overspend in the SEND budget is 1.1 million, which is mostly due to transport, But in addition to that, we have a 15 million overspend in the high needs block dedicated to schools grant aspect. Really, actually, the total financial pressure in that area is 30 million, but we are already taking steps to help to contain that. So there is an exceptional increase in need for our special educational needs and disability services. You'll have seen in the report on pages 12 and 13 that the number of education, health and care plans has gone up by 40% in the last 2 financial years. So I've been having a look back so that we can sort of understand what this means over the longer term. In 2010, we had 5,358 children with statements, which was the equivalent of an education, health and care plan, then slightly different, but the same thing. And so we're talking about a 55% increase in those children with plans over and above what we had in 2010. And included in our current number of 8,300 are 600 children and young people who have become eligible to have an education, health and care plan since January of this year. So those 600 children and young people are still working with us, with our officers, working out what services would be appropriate to help and support them. And the costs for those 600 children in the system since January are still being worked out. So you can see that this is it's shown very clearly on the graph, which we've got later on in the report, on page, it's Annex 3, and it's a graph that's headed Agency Placements 2014-15 to 18-19, page 39. You can 40 on my one, so somewhere it's page 40, I think. You can see the yellow dotted line continuing to increase as we go through the year, and it's just on a one-way direction of travel at the moment. So we're looking at a huge, as I've already said, culture and practice change needed with our partners, working with mainstream schools to be more inclusive, expanding our own provision of special school places and places in special units, which was one of the things that was referred to in the decision-making meetings recently. Project to use existing buildings and facilities differently at speed to provide more places. Earlier identification and support for families and children, families with children with special education needs and disabilities, so that we can help them early on when problems are identified, rather than waiting till it gets to a crisis point and ending up with quite so many residential placements. And an urgent need for a transformation programme, which is one of the transformation programmes proposed. So there's a lot of work going on, and even to get the financial pressure of really 30 million down to the 15 million that we're projecting, there are some 8.7 million of these savings are achieved, so we can say green, but 5.2 million have potential barriers, so amber to red, and 1.2 million at high risk. So even that, getting it down to the 15 million is, I'd say, quite tricky, well, very, very difficult. And this is why I'm very anxious to make it clear to you the scale of the challenge. I'd like to say a little bit more about the impact of this on the SEN transport budget. You'll recall that last year I did take through Cabinet, and you all agreed to the recommendation, a new range of travel options to encourage families to take their children to school, and we would fund that, and different ways of working on SEND transport, a range of options. The uptake on that hasn't been as high as we had hoped, and in addition to that, we've also got these additional children coming in, many of whom are eligible for transport. Not every child that has an education, health and care plan is eligible for free transport, but we have got significant increases. So, for example, if you compare the 3,000 children who are receiving free transport in 2018, that compares with 2011, when we had 2,500 children, so a 20% increase in those 7 years. And because we're using a lot of residential placements that are quite a distance away from the children's homes, obviously that puts more pressure on in terms of the transport costs. As Claire was saying about children's services more generally, this is this overspend, the issues we're facing here are common across the South East, and because other authorities have got similar increases in numbers, we're all competing for residential placements, and that's pushing up the cost of placements and making a big impact on the budget as well. I've mentioned working with partners in the sense of working with schools to change how inclusive they are and keeping more children in our schools, and actually not so many children needing an education, health and care plan if we can get the right support in early for them to support them remaining in school and remaining at home and remaining in mainstream. But we've also got a significant partner in health. And in 2017-18, of all those children with the education, health and care plan, we have 7 children who are in receipt of continuing health care at an annual cost of £0.4 million. But 7 children out of that number is a very small number of children, and I'm absolutely certain that there are other children where we should be sharing the health costs much more fairly between us and health. There's a lot of work underway with health colleagues to review the needs of a number of children to increase the contributions from health. At the moment, if we put a child into a residential placement for educational purposes, we can quite often end up paying for the health aspect of their care as well, and that needs to be much more rigorously worked on with our health partners so that the costs are shared out more equitably. As I say, the transformation programme is very much needed. It will involve an awful lot of partnership working. It's by no means a certainty that we can all work together to get this under control quickly enough, and we are going to, despite the efforts to manage the increasing need for specialist SEND services, we've had to put in there is a likelihood, shall we say, that in the 2019-2020 financial year an overspend of 15 million will have to be carried forward, because even getting from 30 million to 15 million is a strong has a need for a strong amount of action from our service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for that. I'm going to yeah, by all means, please.
Thank you, Mary, for that incredibly well explained situation that you're telling us. And actually, it's shocking, the increase of 55% in these plans. You start to wonder what on earth is happening. And my question, I suppose, is, because you said this is common across the whole of the South East, so is it common across the whole of the UK? And what is the government doing to invest in this problem, to help local authorities and schools to combat the huge amount of extra responsibility that these children obviously require in health, etc., etc.? I know we've got party political conferences going on at the moment throughout the whole of this part of autumn. I haven't heard a lot of buzz about children's services really so far, and I just wondered whether we were lobbying government with other local authorities to make sure that they didn't forget this huge demand that's going up, especially if it is a national demand, that they needed to make an investment in it. And I just wonder if you could help with that.
Yes, you're right. The situation is increasing demand nationally. The reason I particularly mention the South East is it's our neighbours that we're competing with, if you like, when we're looking for residential placements, because if we're all looking for the same ones, then pushing the price up. I think that this increase in demand has been an unforeseen consequence of the change from statements to education, health and care plans, and the hype, if you like, surrounding that change has unfortunately led to a position where parents really feel they won't get any help unless they have an education, health and care plan. And we need to make it much clearer, working with schools on inclusivity, as I've already said. But very often children can be helped, especially if it's identified early on, can be helped within the mainstream rather than waiting for the problems to get to the stage where they need an education, health and care plan. In terms of government, I don't think that they are necessarily focusing on this. As Claire has said, with children's services, go to regional meetings, and this is the kind of thing that other authorities are also talking about.
Can I now go to Mel? There's very little on the report, but it would be helpful if you'd cover it, please.
Yes, at the moment the report is showing that we have a 4.5 million projected underspend for the year going forward. However, that masks the fact that we have to find close to £31 million worth of savings going forward. And that, fortunately, has been helped by the fact that we've recently had an LGA peer review, and they've brought forward some interesting facts. First of all, one of the comments they made is that perhaps our door, although being fairly well controlled, is still open to the general population. We've done some statistics, and roughly 70% of the referrals coming from the health partners, either through GPs or the acutes, with 30% knocking on the door generally. So we're going to have to take this matter up with the health, because at the moment we discharge, we do assessments at hospital, and it could be one of the suggestions made by the LGA is that we're doing our assessments too soon, and as a consequently the packages are too large at that point, so we should wait until they come out of hospital, have got themselves re-abled, and then have a look at the packages and give it reasonably going forward, which is interesting, and it requires a different concept going forward. The other issue they did mention is that we have to really start looking at our front door. And if you look at page 46, which summarizes the additional 10.7 million, which is being driven into the budget, you will note that fundamentally the issue is demand management, as we call it. And I just did a quick look at the August figures, which are not here reported. We had a gross, and I say gross because that doesn't include the people that have passed on or left the service for one reason or the other. But we had a gross increase of £1,500 units or care packages awarded. And if I take the average cost of that per week and I extrapolate, that's a £16 million hit for us on an annual basis. So the impact is very clear. The front door has got to be closed, and closed quickly, if we are to achieve the 30 million. And so that's the driving force going forward.
And I think this is the point that we're trying to get over to people, is that the sheer demand of numbers is starting to swamp quite a lot of county councils. There was an interesting article, and there was quite a detailed report on BBC News about the 1 billion that the county councils, the 27 county councils in the country, are facing in order towards funding of children's services in the future. I think there's many issues around that. There's quite a lot of local authorities had to spend an awful lot more on children's services last year, and the growing problem is going right back to the original point I made, where we have a 6.5% demand growth on our services, where we can only raise 2.4% in the income. Anybody in business will know you cannot survive long unless you do something. And that's why it is imperative that we actually transform every single service in every department right across this council. And there'll be a great deal more to say about that in the preliminary budget statement in November, when I lay out the options going forward. Can I ask Colin now and Mike to start picking up on the place items, please?
Thank you, Leader. From the Highways point of view, not much different to report from the last Cabinet meeting on the current MTFP savings. We're on target for. I will ask people to obviously look at Annex 4, which is the additional in-year savings that need to be managed, and I think it's important to note that. There's a lot of work that's gone on over the summer to identify that. Quite a bit of that, especially within my area, are one-offs, and will need to be readdressed next year as part of the savings programmes going forward. But I'd like to thank the officers that have worked hard over the summer to actually bring them forward and put these together to meet these new targets. I'd also like to go to page 21 and talk about the investment strategy as well on a slightly more positive note, in that the strategy going forward and our investment strategy is working. The net income for this year is going to be 4.7 million, which is 700,000 in excess of the income budget for this, and all the work that's going on by 1920, this should be the income generated from our investment strategy should be reaching 8.3 million, and with the additional work that's going on, we're hoping to increase that. So I think there is some positive in there, and I think this will be a big part of our budget going forward, how we use our investment and our money, and also use our assets throughout Surrey to deliver services, but also to generate income as well, and to help the boroughs and districts with their delivering of housing, and at the same time creating some income streams for ourselves. So I think there's some important work that's now ongoing, and I think that is a positive message to go on the back end of that.
And for members may be aware that under paragraph 63, the investment strategy, we set out an investment strategy way back in 2013 with the intent that by 2020 we would see a 10 million annual increase in income to this county council. And I'm pleased to report that we're well on the journey there. We know we'll receive 4.7 million this year, and when the additional phase work is done on the Crawley site, that will provide an extra 1.3. That'll take us up to 6 million. So when the third phase of Crawley site is done and other sites we've got, I am very confident that we'll go from 8.3 million income in 2019-20 to reach our target of 10 million. But having said that, we still will have to look at the whole of our estate, the whole of the way we do things. How do we grow? How do we grow the economy in Surrey? And how do we create further income from that stream? And we will be bringing a report following a meeting this morning, which Tim, Helen and Colin and I went to this morning. We'll bring a report to Cabinet in October about how we were going to do that. It's important that we look to another revenue avenue, and we think we should set a long-term goal of a significant sum of money, which I'll explain at that Cabinet meeting. So can I now go on to Michael, please, on the waste?
Yes, thank you, David. Yes, that's true. I can confirm that it's very similar to what Colin says, very similar to what we reported last time. We're on now to achieve our budget. It was still a tough budget, just short of 89 million, but we will hit that for the end of the financial year. A couple of things, though, to be aware of. The ongoing challenges with our recycling going into China has caused us some problems, and the price of that was quite challenging, and that's shown on page 32, although in August the prices did revert back to what we budgeted for. So if that continues, we will have better news later on. But overall, on the budget, I'm pleased that the work we did last year with the CRCs means that we will achieve the CRC savings, because the amount of tonnage gone into the CRCs are considerably down than what we budgeted for, which is good news. On the Eco Park, members will know that there has been a delay in terms of the construction. We're now looking at commissioning that in October with full operation, we're hoping, in January. That does mean that the money we set aside for that operation to be live won't be used, and will be put into the sinking fund while we work out how much is our actual cost to it, because there may be some of the sinking fund we won't need, but we need to do some work to know exactly what the liability is. As Colin pointed out, we have been working in August to look at savings in year, and we do on page 47 outline those, and there's 1.1 million we're looking for there, and most of that money is going to come from grants and some of the investment that on SIL money. So we believe that the community transport, which also is part of that budget, will see us save our 1.1 million by the year end. Obviously, the transformation that Mary also spoke about, there are some real challenges there, and we will be looking for making those savings in the course of 2019-20, but they will be extremely challenging.
At our March Cabinet meeting, we agreed to carry forward some sums that may or may not have been needed this year, and two of those are on paragraph 33, communications, requested to draw down 70,000 of the Pacific community project that they were doing, and our legal service required to draw down 100,000 to meet the cases of delayed cases for various legal workers. So that's on paragraph 38. So recommendation for the report is asked to draw those 170 down. Do I assume everyone's happy with those? I just thought I would summarise now where we are. If we look at the revenue savings, we are on track to make the 66 million savings. In fact, it looks as though we might be able to save a little bit more, another 2.6 million, and that's always good. It's laid out on page 18 on the graph. There's a summary of our savings target, and it's looking quite helpful. It's absolutely clear if we go to paragraph 52 about service transformation. This is utterly key that we transform the way we run our service over the next 2 to 3 years. Without doing that, we will not be able to live within our budget. And a huge amount of work's been done over the summer period between the Cabinet, CLT and many officers and other members across the Council that we've drawn up plans, and they'll become more fluid as we go forward. But they are essential, and I will be presenting some details of that at the November County Council meeting. In terms of the capital report, it's fairly stable, as you can see, on Table 2 and Table 3 and Table 4. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that we need to make sure that whatever properties we have, we need to make sure we can get the best value out of them. We had a meeting this morning of the Asset Strategy Board, and I think we put forward some ideas, and we're bringing some of that paperwork to the October Cabinet meeting. As members will be aware, the proposed management actions that we've been working on over the last couple of months are laid out on page 45, 46 and 47, 48. These are the additional savings that we've been looking for quite some time now, where we believe that there were always going to be additional savings to be found. And I'm grateful to everyone who's played a part in this, because I think this is going to make a huge difference as we go forward with the sheer pressures we have on many of our areas, both on children's service, on SEND. People must remember we also have a duty to provide school places. I know there's been a lot of talk about academies and free schools, but actually whether an academy, a free school or a local school, we still, as the county council, as taxpayers, we have to provide that place. That's enormous financial pressure placed on the county council, and the national funding doesn't meet the demand that we need, and we have to find that funding through our capital, that we then have to borrow money to pay for it. So the new savings are on Annex 4, and I commend these to the Cabinet. If anyone has any further questions, I'm happy to take them. But I thought we'd now go back to page 10 and deal with the full recommendations. So Cabinet is asked to note the Council over revenue and capital budget as at the 31st of July 2018. Cabinet is asked to note the management action proposed to achieve a further 25 million. As you may recall, in July Cabinet we agreed 15 million that was put forward to us, so that is a further 15 on top of the 25, that would be 40 million, and the details, as I've just said, are on Annex 4, and Cabinet asked to approve the adjustments to reduce and reprofile service capital programmes, which is in the papers of paragraphs 58 to 61. Does anybody have any further questions they'd like to ask me? Are we happy or not happy? I can honestly say I don't think we're happy. I think as Cabinet members with huge responsibilities for a 1.8 billion budget, this enormous pressure that people outside sometimes don't realise. We are a big business, and like all big businesses, we have to live within our means. And our means are only controlled through what we're allowed to do, and with the handcuffs that government places on local authority leaders and Cabinet members, we're not allowed to raise funds to meet the needs of our residents. And as a consequence of that decision, we have to now take forward some radical ways of how we are going to transfer the services. We're going to have to recognise that we can only deliver what we can deliver. There will be a number of areas that I will explain in the preliminary budget statement of things we will have to do differently and how we'll have to change. These are really tough decisions. And I have to be honest that I think every member of this council has a responsibility to the residents to make sure they articulate those changes that we will need to do over the next 6 or 9 months of what we need to do to drive the agenda forward so we can live within our budget over the next 3 to 4 years. None of us know what's going to happen next year, on whatever date it is, the 29th of March. None of us really know. None of us know who's going to be in government. None of us know will there be an election. None of us know will anybody actually start thinking about local government. I actually admit I'm really disappointed because we are the public and the servants on the ground who deliver services to the public. It's critical that government actually learns and thinks about us as well. Brexit is not the only agenda in this country. What is really important to people who are in need, who have difficulties, who have children who need help, who have adults who need help, what they want to know is, what is the local authority doing? They don't want to know, is the local authority being tied down so we can't deliver the services people want? We want to improve the roads. We want to improve lots of things. But we have to live within our budget. That will mean there will be difficult days ahead, and we as the Cabinet will obviously have to make those decisions. But we will be looking for all of our members in the 11th of November when we put the preliminary budget statement forward to Council. All members will have to stand up, be counted, and do what we can and do the best we can for our residents. As far as I'm concerned, I know I go on about residents because that's what we're here for. That's why I put myself up for election, to be a member, to do the best I can. I do not enjoy having my hand tied behind my back and not being able to help as many people as we can. But we have to help those most in need. That's the critical thing we have to ask ourselves. Are we helping those most in need? And are they the ones that definitely need our services? Sometimes other people will have to make different choices. We as the members will have to make those tough decisions. I'm confident that despite them being tough, I'm hoping that I will get complete unanimity across the County Council in November, that everyone will understand the position we're in and will vote with us whatever we put forward for the benefit of the people of Surrey. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I put the now I've said that, can I put the recommendations to you, please? Our recommendations on page 10. Are we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you. So we now go on to item 8. Finance Improvement Plan. I recall sitting in this room last June. I recall being told you needed to save 26 million, or you were going to be in debt 26 million at the end of the year. I think all of us around this room who were at that meeting will recognise that. I'll also recall that we did try everything possible to find what savings could be found. I also clearly remember in March having a report that said that we found it, and it's only going to be, you're actually over it by 1.3 million. To me, as a member, as the leader, and as somebody who cares passionately about how we provide service to our residents, I cannot live with that sort of nonsense anymore. We have to have the truth. We have to be told the facts. And at the end of it, whatever those facts are, we have to do it. And I can honestly say that we are now getting that. We've had some really difficult meetings as a Cabinet CLT. We've had good words, harsh words, but words which we now know we are getting the facts. There have been some really unpalatable messages about the demand in children, demand in adults, the send which is really rocketing and really almost getting to a stage where can we continue to deliver the service that's really important. If you're a parent and you have a child in need of a service, you want the County Council to do the best. In order for that to happen, we as the members who make the policy need to have the facts. We need to have performance management information behind that so we can depend on that to make the right decisions for the members. So in May of this year, I asked the Chief Executive and I discussed it. Well, we discussed it the day after she arrived, even the day before. And we decided we would ask CIFA in, that's the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, to come in and look at our finances. No hold, nobody interfering, but I wanted an honest, independent challenge on where were we, what can we do better, how do we do it better. And my belief, and somebody said to me, you shouldn't tell the story. Well, I believe we have a duty to our residents, we have a duty to our members to make sure everybody in Surrey is aware of what they found, and the information is laid out quite clearly. It does mean that we need to accept their findings. There's a huge detailed plan, which is Annex 2, which the Director for Digital and Transformation spent a huge amount of time working with the new finance people, putting this package together, and I believe it's a solid plan. Yeah, it's easy to tear a plan apart, but we have now got a really good plan in front of us that we can work on. There's responsibilities for the Cabinet, there's responsibility for the Chief Executive CL team, and there's responsibilities for Lee and Kevin in the Finance Department. This is really important that we monitor this plan as we go through the next year or two to make sure it delivers what we want. And you'll see in Annex 1, which I know you all have read, is the CIPRA report, which I think makes some serious reading. I think it's really important that we're honest about and tell the truth. The recommendations from them are that we accept the plan at Annex B, and we agree the tasks and actions to deliver an assigned Cabinet on pages 4 to 6 of the Finance Approved and specify member responsible for their delivery. And what I am going to suggest at this moment in time, the member responsible will be the leader, and in due course we will look to see if we can pass that responsibility for the day-to-day running of the finances to a Cabinet member. I've got some things in mind that I'm going to suggest at a later date, but not at this moment in time. So it's very clear that the underlying performance and data that we were getting had great volatility to the estimates we were being given. I'm not accusing anyone, I'm not saying anything to anyone, but the reality is it's really an important lesson for us. If we know that 6.5% is our demand, that's what people want, that's what we need to keep up. But if we've only got 2.4% coming in, if we were a business, we wouldn't be around long. So we have to transport. And you've seen on the high street, many companies didn't have enough money coming in to pay the bills. We have to address that. And as I said, we now have a plan, and that's the important thing. We will get assistance from other people who will come along in paragraph 7, main bullet point 1. They'll come along, some people in the industry, people like chief executives, who come in and quietly challenge, are we doing things right, things like that to help us as members. It is fair to say that the challenges facing this county council, despite the fact that since 2009, when the leadership changed, this council has saved £540 million per year. I repeat that. We have saved £540 million per year. And I would suggest there are other county councils like Essex and Kent who've done similar sort of figures. But when I read reports that we're looking to save 100 million over 10 years, or we're struggling because we can't, this is a big business, big opportunities, big costs, big demand on our services, and we have to change the way we do things. I think this report sets it out very clearly, and I believe that it's there for us to take note, act on, and guide us, and make sure that we actually do change. We cannot afford to leave this. We must follow the plan. Tim.
Thank you, Leader. And I wanted to totally support what you've said. I mean, in the last agenda item, we spent some time looking at the significant challenges that we have in all of the areas across the council, and we have no choice and intend to rise to that challenge and deliver those savings. The CIPFA report is very stark. I mean, it's painful reading in parts, it has to be said, but it is completely transparent. It sets out those issues, it sets out the things that were working well in the finance area and things that weren't. As we move forward, we've got a significant number of a significant transformation programme, 18 or so streams of work, and to ensure that the members, the Cabinet in particular, who spend their day looking at these matters, to ensure that we get that right, we have to have good quality and accurate information. The previous report starts to address some of the visibility issues. It's much easier to read, much easier to understand, and further work will be done on that. But it's absolutely essential that the information that we as members and indeed the officers have is both transparent and accurate. The change that I think this report also brings about is accountability. That has been lacking over previous years. and Mary Lewis alluded to it, there seemed at times to be an acceptance that in areas there was an overspend and there was nothing really that we could do or should do about that. Somebody has to be accountable for delivering the budget that they're given. There are now budget envelopes that have been given to each of the service areas, and they will have to work within those. And indeed, that accountability and responsibility also extends to cabinet members. The cabinet member will have to sign off that budget alongside the officers. So there will be joint accountability, and that must be right. But equally, it is, and Leader, you alluded to that, it's incumbent upon all 81 elected members here to take a share of that responsibility. It's very easy for people to criticise and not to take the time and trouble to look at the detail. There are 81 elected members here. There are select committees, and it is their role to scrutinise the work of the Cabinet and of the officers. And I hope that as part of this process of transformation generally and transformation in the finance area, that we will see good quality scrutiny at those select committees. The information is available for all members to see, and I'm sure the officers or indeed any of the cabinet members will be happy to spend time with members if they want to understand more of the detail. I think for me, what this paper says is that it's a kind of hands-up paper. There's an acceptance that from an independent review, there are significant areas that need improvement. We accept that. There's no attempt to obfuscate or to suggest that we should do anything other than that. It has also given us some guidance or some hints on good practice that exists in other authorities and in other areas. But I think the key thing is there is a very detailed finance improvement plan here in Annex 2. Every aspect has been assigned to individuals, so again there's complete transparency as to who's doing what. I believe that we have the right structure now in place to deliver this. I believe the Chief Executive has or will have the right resource to deliver this. And that is absolutely crucial. It is going to be challenging. It's in all respects, not just in terms of delivering the numbers, but delivering that transformation and that restructuring. But this paper, I believe, is a very good step forward in this authority, recognising the areas that it's fallen short in, but actually, more importantly, has set out a very clear process how we're going to move forward and how we're going to make sure that we do deliver a balanced budget.
Thank you, Leader. I've only been involved in the Cabinet for just over a year. This is my second year. This second year definitely has a different feel to it. There is definitely a more openness, a willingness to work with. There's more information coming forward. And actually, if I look at the future, I think in 3 years' time, 2 to 3 years' time, Surrey County Council will be in a good place. The challenge we've got now is what condition we're in when we get there. I think the journey over the next 2 or 3 years is going to be difficult. Some of the transformational work is still in its infancy. But this is the beginning of a journey. I hate that word. I shouldn't say journey. But this is the beginning of a new look to Surrey County Council. We need to make some difficult decisions. They're not going to be easy. Yes, there's some work and some responsibility held by officers and by cabinet members. But actually, all 81 councillors and all officers, we need to permeate this down through all different levels of the organisation to actually get that positive message out there. We're making some difficult decisions to arrive in a good place where we can look after the people that really need the services we deliver. And I think it's really important that we keep our eye on the end goal, not just look at the difficult decisions we're making today, but let's keep one eye on the end goal and what we're trying to build and what this is about at the end of the day, the services we are trying to put together to deliver to the residents that really need our services. And I think we just need to keep that positive spin and our chins up going forward through some of these difficult times we're going to need to go through.
Thank you. And the report was indeed difficult to read, but I would like to say that I think this monthly budget paper, that our last item, really shows the difference that has been made already. I really welcome the addition of non-monetary numbers in there, which you've seen Cabinet members use to tell the story today, and I think it makes the explanations much easier and clearer so that we know what we have to do in the future. So I really welcome the new structure of the report and hope to see it progress further.
Thank you. Page 59 of the SIFA report, or of our pack, I should say, page 5 of the SIFA report, that graph there shows exactly the predicament we face today and where we will be in the future. So I'd like to express my personal thanks to the Chief Executive, who's not new anymore, but the Chief Executive, who's basically brought everybody down to earth effectively and focusing at 50 foot rather than the 50,000 foot we were operating on. And I admire the progress that's been made to date. Effectively, it's been a huge turnaround in very quick time to get the message out. Certainly the top level got the message. Now the job of each of the Cabinet members is to get that message down to right down to the bottom of the organisation. And I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Denise?
Thank you, Leader. I have the privilege of working with some very disciplined services in cultural services and highways, transport and environment, and they have come in year on year on budget, and I think with this additional rigour and support that is coming through from finance, I think they will be enabled to generate far more income and be far more creative. So I think this is going to enhance our opportunity to be far more sustainable going forward. And I would really like to commend the inclusion of the management actions within the budget report, because that focuses the mind on the action that needs to happen right now rather than looking to the horizon. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments? Are we all happy? Okay, well, I'd like to publicly thank SIPA for an honest, open and genuine report. I think it's been really helpful from my point of view. I know Chief Executive agrees with me when we say it's a good way forward. If we didn't have a plan going forward, I really would be worried. But I think we have a clear plan. I don't think we should be afraid to stand up publicly and say we wanted this done independently. And I think it's proved its well-working goal. It's a bit like the Nolan Principles. As you know, we have it on our board in the Cabinet Office. It's all about integrity, honesty, transparency. These are really important things that we've got here. And I think this is, some people will say it's bad, it's harsh, it's not this, it's not that. But actually you have to look past and say, are we actually are we changing things? Are we moving it? And Charlotte is absolutely right. We are changing the way we do things. I think that's important. So the recommendations are on page 49. There are 3 recommendations. Are we all happy to agree? Please show. Thank you. Now go on to item 9, which is the report from Mary, Helen, and the tribe, whoever else involved, on the contract and water supply and fresh fruit and vegetables. I could do with a banana at the moment, by the way.
Thank you, Leader. This is a very straightforward report, and it's a report that arises from the success of one of our services. It's a straightforward report that recommends that Cabinet support the award of a contract for 3 years to 2 suppliers, Cheeseman Brothers Limited and AG Axtons, for the supply of fresh fruit and vegetables. The total contract value for the 2 lots is 2.58 million. The background to the recommendation is that Surrey County Council Commercial Services runs a school meals service which is popular with pupils, with parents and schools, and the uptake of those meals is good. It has won awards for the quality of its meals, and you can also tell by the fact that a number of schools, after they become academies, continue to use our Surrey Commercial Services school meals, that we're doing a good job there. In order to produce the meals, it requires a reliable supply contract for fruit and vegetables. In addition to our school meal service, Elmbridge Borough Council uses the same fruit and vegetable contract to supply its residential care homes, which typifies the many ways in which the county works with districts and boroughs, sometimes quite small ways behind the scenes, but which can be mutually beneficial. So going back to the school meals, there are strict legal requirements for school meals to include fruit and vegetables, and it's also part of the County Council's childhood obesity strategy to increase the consumption of fruit and veg among the school-age population. But when you start talking about the school meals operation scaled up across the county, we're talking about a big order for these products, and therefore we've come into the whole procurement process because of the size of the order. We're looking at a complex delivery schedule, as the fruit and vegetables need to be delivered to a large number of schools on weekdays and delivered within a short time window so that meal preparation can get underway in the individual kitchens, and so that the school meal service continues to work well as schools and parents expect. Because of the size and value of the contract, a full procurement exercise has taken place, which is detailed in the report and about which I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. But basically, this is an enabling thing to enable us to deliver the service. Fruit and vegetables are seasonal and suppliers vulnerable to weather and other changes. It's therefore essential that suppliers are able to provide a reliable service. We ask them to source Surrey produce or as local as possible, although some products like bananas are clearly not grown in Surrey. And also we ask them to meet tight delivery requirements. Yeah, maybe with climate change, maybe. I ask the Cabinet, therefore, to support the award of this contract as recommended in 2 lots to Cheeseman Brothers and AG Axtons to ensure that schools around the county continue to serve healthy, tasty meals, and this will help support our ambition for children in Surrey to be safe and healthy as well. Thank you.
You wanted to say something?
Yes, I'm fully supportive of the healthy and tasty meals, but I apologise, I should have declared a non-pecuniary, non-prejudiced interest, as I am the leader of Elmbridge Borough Council.
We'll let them off, will we? Yeah. Anybody else want to speak? Helen, and then we'll close it off.
Very much. Just very, very quickly, just to point out that this is a service that's provided by the County Council's commercial services. It's not something that the county actually pays for. It's paid for by the schools, and I want to make sure that that's understood. In fact, commercial servicing overall makes some income out of the work that they do, which obviously helps to contribute towards our overall costs.
And that we'll agree to this item. Please show. Thank you. Item 10, it's Mel and Colin and Helen. I don't know which one's going to start, probably Mel, but he'll say somebody else. The contract for resident dementia nursing care, paper, item 10. Mel.
Yeah, thank you. This paper is requesting approval in principle for the use of the old care home site located in Ottershaw, which was vacated some years back. Following the closure of the old residential home, I think it was in 2016, the site was originally earmarked for an extra care facility, but subsequently failed as it was not deemed to be of a correct size. The proposal is to award the contract to Care UK, a well-known provider, to demolish and construct a specialised dementia and nursing home, a care home, where there is a growing need for this type of service. The need for such facility is outlined on page 87, paragraphs 1 to 3, and you will see, quite shockingly, that, or not unsurprisingly, the number of elderly with dementia are expected to rise fairly dramatically within the county. In our preliminary negotiations with the Care UK, we've guaranteed up to 50% of the beds that will be at block rate. This process of putting in our property and having somebody else construct and develop and run the care home is a new arrangement, and has taken time to arrive at this point, as the legal and procurement processes have spent some time ensuring that all these issues have been covered. The project is obviously dependent on obtaining planning approval, and the economies of the two-sized options which the provider would like to go for are contained in Part 2. We deal in paragraph 61 with the equalities and diversity consideration, and the tendering process and development of the project is further outlined in the Part 2 paper. So on that basis, I'm open to any questions. The recommendations are contained in page 86. I have 2 recommendations there, and any questions on this project?
Rabbit in headlights moment there. Happy to support this paper. I think it's a really good piece of work between property services and adult social care. and delivering things on the ground where we need to. It's a good use of our estate, again, to deliver services. So I think this encompasses work we need to do going forward in delivering things for the services we need to deliver for our residents going forward.
Okay, Jonathan, you wanted to say something. I thought I'd get to two key members first, unless Helen's going to add one. No. So would you like to speak, please?
Thank you very much for letting me speak under this item. I would just like to ask for a few more details about the specifics of what's proposed here, how that links to the Council's overall strategy, and a bit about finances. So firstly, while the report clearly sets out the context and the need for an extra 400 care home beds across Surrey that are local authority funded, I can't see anything in this part of the report for the public that says what's proposed to be provided here. Is it possible to confirm what is proposed to be built, how many care home beds in particular are proposed to be provided, and that they all will be local authority funded beds? Secondly, I wonder if you'd be grateful to explain how the overall approach set out in paragraph 8 of this report is, in your view, best to be delivered, because it could be delivered in-house or on spot contracts or in long-term contracts, such as this proposal sets out for a 25-year contract. But as already noted today, Surrey are currently looking to bring 413 Anchor Trust care home beds back in-house. At the same time here, you're proposing to provide new care home beds under a 25-year contract. So how does that fit into the overall strategy? Is there an appetite for a balance between in-house, spot price and long-term, and what is that balance, and how does this fit into that overall strategy? And finally, on finances, item 9, the previous item on this agenda, talked about fresh fruit and vegetables. And although this isn't a Part 2 report, we are able to share with the public exactly the savings that this would give against the current benchmark, which was 8%, and the exact value in pounds and pence of our procurement decision on fresh fruit. But here, in paragraph 44, you note that the contracts were evaluated against the market rate of a spot bed in a new care home, but I guess most of our current beds are in existing care homes, so it would be interesting to note how they compare to existing care home prices, or indeed care homes that we're just bringing back in-house. So it would be useful, I think, to give an outline, even if you can't provide the same level of financial details that you were about fresh fruit and vegetables for care homes, but to let the public know that this report is actually improving our value for money and delivering some savings as well. So this isn't a point to make a criticism in any way, it's just about looking at the details. But if at least you're able to give an indication of the number of beds and how this fits the strategy and what the overall savings might be.
Jonathan, stay there, please. You've asked an awful lot of questions in that question, and if I may suggest in future, it would be really helpful, because I did give you permission since over 48 hours ago to speak, on things like that where you have a lot of detail that you're expecting members to respond to instantly while you're still going on at quite a fast pace. I think it really would be helpful in future if you have got detail like that. Let's have it the morning of the meeting, so give us a chance to digest the detail. So when you do speak, we can respond to you in a positive manner. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't answer you, but I'm nervous of answering questions that will be put like that where we don't know all the detail. Do you want to try that?
Absolutely no problem.
I'm
Thanks
very happy that from the recording we'll take a note of everything you've asked and we'll provide you an answer by within a week. Is that all right? Would that be helpful? Because I'd rather he gets the right answers.
Sure. Some of the responses are in part 2, so if he hangs around for part 2, he could read those.
Yes, I totally accept that, and thank you. But I would think in terms of part 1, it might be useful at least to know the public the number of beds.
Yeah, the reason I've said that, Jonathan, is you went straight into paragraph 44, which clearly is something that it would be in the details of that would be contained in part 2. So do you mind waiting until we get to part 2 and we'll see if we can help you?
No, that's absolutely fine. My comparison was the way in which that section was dealt with in this report, the report on fruit and vegetables, and I was expecting a similar level of detail here. Thanks.
There may be very good reasons, but we'll explain. Thank you. now go on to item 11, which is Denise Turner-Stewart and Helen. What are you up to in all this, Helen? You seem to be getting involved in everyone. Provision of personal protective equipment for our Surrey Fire and Rescue Service. While we're doing this item, I think I would like to say a huge thank you to the fire service and all the fire operators and the staff in the service who do a terrific job for us, sometimes often unknown and often unseen. I do think they do a great job for us. Denise.
Thank you for that introduction, Leader. I echo your sentiments. So this is a report for the provision of personal protective equipment for Surrey Fire and Rescue Service. Surrey Fire and Rescue Service has a statutory duty to provide firefighters with personal protective equipment compliant with Personal Protective Equipment at Work Regulations 1992. The current contract was awarded to Cosalt Ballyclare, and it's a fully managed service providing firefighting PPE which commenced in 2012 and will expire in 2020. The firefighting ensemble includes a fire tunic, fire trousers, fire hoods, fire gloves, leather fire boots, rescue jacket and a helmet. And the orders need to be placed by December 2018 to allow for lead times, manufacturing, user training and a measurement of the establishment. The DCRG have indicated that PPE procurement nationally is uncoordinated and uneconomic, and the Home Office have promoted a framework supported by Kent and Medway Fire and Rescue Service with a single supplier, Bristol Uniforms. And this is a high-quality, high-performance product offering maximum comfort and protection. It's a fully managed service with flexible provision, and the contract cost is within our current 18 to 21 MTFP, and the recommendation is set out on page 104.
Comments from members? Helen? You're dying to get in.
Well, I might as well say something, I think. But very briefly, though, Denise has explained it obviously fairly. But it's so important, isn't it, to make sure that our firefighters get the equipment and the protection that they needed when they act on behalf of our residents in saving lives. And it's great that we've been able to go ahead with this kind of contract where their equipment will be guaranteed for when they need it. That's really important. We must protect the people who protect us.
What's probably not commonly well known is that the Surrey Fire and Rescue Service has some of the best equipment on their vehicles. But when they're on the M25 or M23 or M3 junction, they've got phenomenal equipment. And we've continually, always in the past, supported everything they do because they are an important frontline service that any one of us at any day could need. And whichever resident is, it's important that if our fire service turns up, they've got the best equipment to do the best job they can for the benefit of our residents. Yeah?
And to protect themselves, yes.
Okay, so the recommendation is on page 104.
David,
sorry.
If I could just draw Cabinet members' attention to the Equality Impact Assessment on page 111, yes, which is a very detailed analysis of the needs and the impacts. Yes. Thank you very much. Sorry.
So the recommendation is on page 104. We will go into part 2 in a minute when we've done the next item. We all agreed with that. Please show. Thank you. We now go on to item 12. It's Mary Lewis and Community Partner Libraries. Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. As Cabinet colleagues will know, there are 10 libraries in Surrey which are run on a community partners basis, meaning that they are manned by volunteers from the community who undertake most, if not all, of the functions of our other libraries. Most have been running as CPLs for about 5 to 6 years, and so they've become mature volunteer operations, and in them volunteers would like to be able to do more for themselves. So this report recommends to Cabinet the introduction of alternative arrangements to provide support to community partnered libraries, and that the agreement to provide library team attendance for 20% of CPL opening hours is changed, with the resource being redeployed towards the development of volunteering across the wider library network. So just to reflect for a moment on the experience of the last 6 years, volunteers in 10 communities have stepped up to work in partnership with the County Council and have adapted the range of activities and services on offer in their community partnered library to meet local needs, from rhyme time, story sessions, knitting and natter sessions, book clubs and so on. volunteers have told the library service that they'd like to be able to do more for themselves, particularly by having better access to the library management system, the IT kit, so they can provide a quicker, better service to local residents rather than having to make time-consuming contacts with the library service in order to carry out some routine tasks. Now, I'm very mindful of the fact that we have a CPL volunteer here on the Cabinet, and I'm sure that Mel will tell us about some of the ways in which better access to the IT and the library management system would help him when he takes up his volunteering role. Since the inception of the CPLs, the Library Services CPL support team has worked with the volunteers, including giving on-site support for 20% of the time that the CPL is open, and doing training, which I've witnessed myself in my own division, because the team did some training when we had a new library, although it's not a CPL, but the same team came, and meetings. And I know they're a really experienced team, they're really good at working with volunteers. So what they and the CPL committees have come up with is the idea that actually they don't need someone to be physically present anymore for 20% of the time, because the volunteers know exactly what they're doing. And the proposed new arrangements will enable them to have contact with supportive people from the library service by telephone when they need it, and from a linked library in particular. But they will at the same time also have greater access to the library management system so that they can do more of the things that Mel and others want to do. This has already been tested in one community partnered library and in community links in Surrey for some time, so we know that these things work and can be good. So paragraph 16 of the report, which we have in front of us, details these changes and how they will be carefully phased in with mitigating actions to make sure that all of the volunteers are up to speed with the IT and know what they're doing, and that the support will be appropriate. There will still be a monthly visit, but it won't be a weekly visit in person. And why are we wanting to do this? Well, obviously to empower the volunteers is one aspect, but also it means that we can redeploy this excellent CPL support team who have got such great experience with volunteers, and they can be used to develop volunteering more widely across the library service. And this will help all of the libraries to become, or to be, and more so in the future, vibrant community destinations meeting the need of residents. This could include having digital sessions, outreach to housebound residents, story times and things that I've mentioned above. And because of their experience, the team is a vital resource for ensuring that all these good things can happen, that the volunteers are able to do it elsewhere across the service. I mentioned that the proposals of the report have been developed with the community partnered library steering groups, and in the detailed feedback from the consultation meetings, you can read that in Annex B of this report. You'll see the comments that they've made and how the support package and the tapering off of it has been done has been worked out in cooperation with them. As you'd expect, in Annex C there's a detailed equalities impact assessment. It acknowledges that there will be an impact on CPL steering groups and volunteers, as they'll have to take a step towards greater self-reliance, but that's the step that they really want to take, and so they, as you said in the introduction to the meeting, they're embracing the opportunities of that. Users of the community partnered libraries will actually experience access to an improved level of service because of the new access that the volunteers will have to the IT, and obviously there'll be a wider benefit to the Surrey public if the CPL team is out developing more volunteers and potentially to expand the diversity of the pool of volunteers. It would be great if we could get volunteers from a range of different communities and into all Surrey's libraries. So on that basis, I would like to commend this report to you and ask you to support the recommendations.
Can I ask you to do Annex C, which is equality and diversity, please?
Yes, I mentioned that, Leader. I mentioned about Annex C, and that it does acknowledge that there will be an impact on the steering groups and volunteers, but it's a positive impact. There will be an impact on the users of the libraries, but it will be a positive impact because they'll get a better service, and there aren't negative impacts to be expected. Thank you.
Could our community volunteer speak now? Mel.
Thank you. I'm delighted to see the move of this, but firstly I want to put on record the thanks to the CPL people who have trained our staff, volunteers in the library. They've done a good job. I think there's time when, like bringing up children, you've got to let go sometime, and I think this is the time to start letting us go. There are one or two items that worry me in this report because they talk about generally IT stuff. We operate in our library a Galaxy, I think it's called the Galaxy system, which enables us to get into this stuff. But we have this odd issue, and if we have somebody coming in that's a new resident and wants to basically join the library, we have to take down all their stuff, including their blood group, and effectively then we can do nothing with it. We have to then phone a contact library, and often on the other side there's not really a receptive voice. And we have to say, look, we have this new person. We have to then put in all the information over the phone. They give us a temporary number, and on it goes. And then under the guise of data protection. But we're sitting in front of us with all this individual's details, and this thing is ludicrous. So if that can be solved, that will fantastically improve our customer image, because when they walk in, they can get a one-stop service. The other thing that's not really addressed here is the banking, because there's cash that's collected in the libraries, and the question is, who's going to do the banking? And it's silent here, asking elderly volunteers, which we have, to run up and down the road with a banking slip. We don't have any banks in our area, so that's kind of got to be looked at going forward. So with that, I'm highly supportive of this move.
Thank you, Leader. I perhaps should have declared a non-pecuniary interest because I'm a trustee of Bagshot Library, and have been since we converted in 2013 to a community partner library. And what I was going to say is we converted, as I said, in 2013, and what a success it's been. Prior to myself and colleagues getting involved, it could well have closed. But we were able to get some really good trustees and some fantastic volunteers who love what they do. They really do enjoy what they do. And to credit to them that they've put so much work in, and we've then been able to maintain the library. And Chris was talking about his parish, and it really was the parish of Winnisham that got involved in the community library, and it's been great fun as well. I'm not a volunteer, but I do go into the library, and I am in awe of those people that do such a fantastic service, I'm sure right across Surrey for our residents, and long may that continue.
Do you want to wind up?
Well, Mel's raised some concerns, and I'm sure there will be individual concerns that each individual community partner library has because of the different things that are taking place there. But we're not saying that there will be no support at all from the central team. So you'll get your monthly visit, and there'll be a linked library, and the linked library staff will be encouraged to come and work experience, if you like, in the CPL, to see what it's like working in the CPL, given appropriate training in order to support the volunteers. So I'm sure these individual arrangements that are needed according to all the different things that the different CPLs have set up can be managed through that relationship. And I know that obviously in the extension of the library management system to volunteers, there's been a lot of attention given, and it's detailed on page 124, to the security of people's information. From what you've described to us, it sounds as if it can only be an improvement if we're able to put their information onto the system rather than on a piece of paper. So I think that with the continuing support of linked libraries and somebody from the CPL team, albeit on a less than weekly basis, these individual things will be able to be ironed out, and they'll have a good future. Thank you.
I will introduce the next item on behalf of Denise, as it is in fact her report. But in essence, this is something that is not usually recognised as something that the Council does. But there are very good reasons for this to occur on a regular basis. It is used sparingly, and there are very, very strong regulations regarding how they may be used and how the permission to use those issues are concerned. That's it, Denise. Over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. So within this report, Cabinet is being asked to update the Corporate Policy and Protocol on the use of Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, RIPA, by Council Services. This update relates to social media and online platforms and includes a change to the Senior Responsible Officer, SRO, for RIPA. The amendment ensures compliance with the data protection legislation, which is detailed in paragraph 11. The update will enable trading standards to adapt to continuous change in the marketplace on social media and online selling platforms, and enables transparency in how we process data to be incorporated into policy. It ensures compliance with the Human Rights Act when carrying out criminal investigations, for example, communications data checks, covert human intelligence, for example, using a profile on social media for the sale of illicit goods on the internet. The usage is regularly monitored and recorded and is only used when absolutely necessary. So this has been in front of the Environment Select Committee and they have scrutinised and endorsed the updated policy and protocol. The recommendation is as tabled. There was a slight error with regard to the paragraph references and the relation to the annex as opposed to the report, so that's clearly set out in the tabled recommendation. I commend the report. Thank you.
Would anybody else care to speak on this matter? No, in that case, could we go straight to the recommendation, which is on page 151, remembering that there has been change to indicate clearly which paragraphs are being referred to. So on that basis, is it agreed? Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That under Section 108 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of